Right, this is Linton the Swarm Vassal, Bellator light heavyweight contender, and you're watching the MMA Crypt Fighting Talk Show.
Hey guys, Gregory Stone, MMAcrypt.com. You're watching the MMA Crypt Fighting Talk Show, of course. Sorry I've been away for about a month now, guys. We had the Colin Fletcher a week ago, but that was recorded about a month ago, so I've been away for a month. But I have a little treat for you today. Nick the Headhunter Chapman. If you watch UCMA 43, past weekend just gone, you would have seen him brutally destroy Big Ben Smith with some vicious knees up against the cage. Incredible victories, fourth time of trying to get that title. He finally got it, so really impressive. I was really excited to get him on the show to speak to you today. Also, if you watched the event, you would have seen Karlos Vemola come in the cage afterwards. He sort of told him to fuck off. You didn't hear it on the microphone, but that's what he said. You could clearly see you can lip read very well, but you don't really need to lip read well to see fuck off. But yeah, I wanted to talk to Nick Chapman about that today. And obviously about the fight, because Big Ben Smith is a wrestler at heart. We know he's a wrestler. He's had some UK one bouts, boxing matches. So was Nick sort of anticipating a surprise, maybe Ben to stand up, but obviously he didn't. You could sort of tell by the way Ben came in, the way he came in with that flying jump kick, whatever it was, with the overhand followed. And he went straight for the takedown as anticipated, if you watch a lot of UCMA. So that's Ben's bread and butter. He likes to get in top control, getting his opponent's half guard, throw strikes, mainly control him on the ground. He likes to get the back, throw strikes from there, work his BJJ. It's where he's comfortable, most comfortable anyway. Big Ben Smith will admit that himself. But Nick Chapman certainly didn't give him a chance to do that. He got the underhooks, reversed him, stuck him straight against cage. Put his head down, just blasted knees into his face. I wanted to talk to Nick about the techniques as well. Was he tempted to throw elbows? Was he tempted to throw punches? Obviously, Ben's quite short, so pinning his head down, just landing those brutal knees was enough anyway. But certainly, you drill, it's one-on-one, you drill reversals, overhooks, underhooks against the cage, reversals, etc. But it certainly looked premeditated from what you could tell. He circled off. He got the underhooks and then pinned him against the cage. Certainly looked like he knew what he was doing and he anticipated that, and he sort of pre-planned it to throw those knees. So I wanted to talk to Nick about that. But enough of me going on. Let's get into the interview with Nick, the Headhunter Chapman, the new UCMA light heavyweight champion. Gregory Stone, MMA.com. On today's show, we have UC MMA fan favourite and new UC MMA light heavyweight champion, Nick Chapman. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Hello, mate.
So, Nick, let's dig into your title victory over Big Ben Smith. For those who have watched UCMA before or caught the odd Big Ben Smith fight, you sort of know that he's a wrestler at heart. He likes to wrestle his opponents to the ground and work from inside his opponent's half guard and get back control, work some strikes, work his BJJ. It's certainly where Ben's most comfortable anyway. So, as an opponent of Ben's, does it sort of help knowing his style going into the fight, because that's what he mainly does, that's his strongest area? We know he's had a few UK one bouts and a few boxing bouts recently, but did it sort of help you there, Nick, to prepare for Big Ben Smith, knowing that at some point he's going to shoot in, and that's exactly what he did early on in the fight?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it was obvious what he was going to do. I mean, the club that he trains at, that's pretty much what they do. Ben himself, as a fighter, that's exactly what he's going to do. You know, we prepared for 6 months for that fight, and that exact manoeuvre, I must have drilled 1,000 times in the last 6 months. And literally, he just come in exactly as unexpected. He done exactly what I expected. I turned him, and I just threw him exactly what I drilled 1,000 times. You know, but Ben's a great fighter. He's a very, very tough guy. He's done very well in the sport, but unfortunately, he was very easy to read, which sort of, well, not unfortunately, that was very fortunate for me. But yeah, he walked straight into my trap.
Did it also help by the fact that he came in with sort of like, it was like a half-attempted flying push kick, followed by overhand, then he went straight for the takedown. So I know that you've been drilling it, obviously it's expected, but at some point, you never know, obviously you could change things up and actually throw some strikes, so that's got to be in the back of your mind. But the fact that he didn't really come in with any conviction with any of his strikes, and the fact that he just basically charged at you. If you're going to strike somebody, sort of, you get your foot in, you set up your strikes, he just basically charged in, so that's going to tell you straight away that he's going to shoot for the takedown. So did that help you too, by the fact that the way he came in with that half attempt push kick followed by the overhand? Because I noticed that he circled off, got the underhooks, and pushed him against the cage like you pre-planned.
Absolutely. I mean, you could see. I mean, within a split second, I could see he was coming at me. If you watch the footage, I stepped back. I wanted him to come to me. That's exactly what I wanted. The jab, overhand right. All right, he threw a kick, which we wasn't really playing for, but it wasn't going to make any difference. But if you watch the footage, I drew him in. I stepped off to the left to take the power out of his overhand. His overhand left being a southpaw.
Yeah.
I took the power out of that, went for the underhook, just turned into the fence. So it was just pretty much, as I say, we drilled it time and time again. I've had some top level guys come in, even sparring partners like Ollie Thompson that previously beat Ben Smith, who's actually very good southpaw as well. And he just replicated Ben over and over and over again. All my training partners did it. Dean Amerson is my coach now, and he's been phenomenal. He's got a genius mind for it, mate. So he sort of planned a whole strategy and brought in some guys, Terry Brazier, to help me out. A great bunch of guys, really, and they all just replicated Ben over and over again.
Well, you mentioned that it was all premeditated. You could tell it was premeditated, the way you pinned him against the cage through the knees. Did you sort of plan elbows for that too? Did you plan an elbow attack because you just threw knees? Did any other attacks come into play? Because obviously going up against the cage, you had the underhook, pinning against the cage, his head against the cage. So was there any other plans of attack, maybe some punches, some elbows?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got a what-if scenario. I mean, the whole plan was to turn him or prevent takedowns. We thought it was going to be a bit tougher in round one and then throw the knee strikes in round two. But it just come right at me and just turned out exactly as we wanted it pretty quickly. But, the other plan was to keep my takedown defence was phenomenal after the last 6 months of people trying to take me down constantly. And what people haven't actually seen is my striking yet, which is a lot better than people think, I think. I've got some serious power in my strikes, and I'm getting a lot quicker, a lot more agile, a lot sharper and snappier now. And I think, it would have been either a knockout or it was going to be finished with the knees as we'd planned anyway. I wouldn't have been going to the ground. If he'd have even got me down, I'd have been straight back up. I wouldn't have stayed there with Ben.
Well, you talk about your takedown defence being cracking recently. Now, obviously, you finished the fight against Ben really quickly, so there was no need to work on any other extra plans that you potentially had. But if the fight did go on, I would say a potential way to break Big Ben Smith would be to negate all his takedowns. Obviously, the start of fights when he's at his strongest. Now, was a plan of your coaches and yourself to sort of negate as many takedowns of Ben as you could to sort of break him mentally? Because if you don't get that takedown and he's forced to stand with you and you start lighting him up on the feet, then obviously he's just going to fade out the fight. Was that another plan also, potentially?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've watched previous fights, and I knew he wasn't going to get me down. I've got guys a lot bigger and a lot stronger than him, guys that have beaten him in the past, better wrestlers than him, and they can't get me down. I mean, out of a Shark Tank of 6 rounds, I get taken down twice at best, and that's with fresh opponents. My takedown defence has got really, really sharp. And we knew, defend the takedown. Ben's just going to start losing heart a little bit. He's going to start getting a little bit upset because it's his game plan. That's all we've got, really. So, yeah, the plan was just, defend, watch him sort of lose a bit of heart or, gas out a little bit and pick him off with strikes. But it just, it just went away. And my coach actually said to me, I can see you finishing him with knees. I don't think you can do it with your power. And he sort of predicted that before the fight even took place.
Well, after you reversed him into the cage and landed the first barrage of knees, you sort of threw a couple of strikes, broke off a little bit, then you got back at him again, pushed him against the cage. It looked like you was laughing, and it looked like you whispered something in his ear also. Do you recall whispering anything into Ben's ear? I'm not too sure. Just from the angle, there's a couple of different videos out there of your fight with Ben. From what I've seen, it looked like you whispered something in his ear. Did you whisper something in Ben's ear? After the first barrage of knees, you threw 2 barrage of knees.
Sorry, mate, was that, you mentioned something about laughing. I didn't quite pick up the last bit of the question. Sorry, mate.
You laugh at pretty much in all your fights, but when you got Big Ben Smith against the cage and you threw the first barrage of knees at him, you sort of broke off for a couple of punches, then you got back at him, you pressed him against the cage again. But when you was close to his head and your mouth was next to his ear, it looked like you whispered something, then you started laughing to yourself. I'm not sure if you whispered something. It looked like you did. Did you whisper something to Big Ben Smith?
Yeah, mate, I've got to be honest with you. It's for me in that cage, whether I'm winning, losing, whether I'm getting battered, whether I'm doing the battering, it's just so much fun for me. I can't physically help myself from laughing. I've laughed in every fight. I just find it so much fun. if I whispered something to Ben, it was absolutely non-disrespectful. I don't disrespect Ben or any guy I've ever fought. To be honest with you, there was a point where on the second clinch, and I threw the second barrage of knees, I sort of felt him slipping on his own blood a little bit, so I sort of helped him down to the floor. I looked round at the referee, as if to say, well, I actually said to the referee, have you seen this cut? And he said, carry on. But I didn't feel comfortable carrying on. I knew that I'd seen the cut, and it was pretty bad, and I knew once the referee saw the cut, he'd stop the fight. So I just positioned myself and pushed his head towards the referee, and the referee stopped it as soon as he saw the cut, which I knew he would.
So you knew as soon as the referee broke you, because obviously he was going to check on the cut, so you sort of knew then it was over, because you looked quite cheery. You were smiling again as you was walking away when Grant Waterman separated you. You were sort of smiling, and it was sort of like a pre-celebration that you already won the fight in a way. Did you sort of know that the fight was going to be stopped?
Yeah, mate, I've seen cuts in MMA, and I've seen what generally gets stopped in terms of a cut in a fight, and that cut was pretty bad. I mean, I got obviously a bird's eye view of it, and it was quite bad, and it was a lot of blood coming from the cut, and it was going into the eye. There was no way they were going to let that carry on.
Yeah, it was Marvin Eastman like. There was a similar one to Gabriel Gonzaga recently against Crocop. It was definitely up there with them two for sure.
Yeah, I've had a similar cut from Jimmy Manuel, if you remember, back a few years ago, from the same strike of knees as well.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Did that sort of come into play when you were sort of kneeing Ben? Because the commentator sort of alluded to it. He compared the Jimmy Manuel finish to your finish of Big Ben Smith, and I sort of thought the same thing when I was watching it. I thought, whoa, that's what Jimmy did to Nick himself. So did that come into your head at all in the fight when you was landing those knees on Big Ben Smith?
No, I mean, obviously, it's very, very similar. The cut was very much the same. The knees were very much the same. The clinch was very much the same as when Jimmy finished me for the title fight many years ago. I get a little bit annoyed sometimes when when the commentators, they impart their opinions a little bit too much, because they're making out as if I'd taken that technique from Jimmy and realised how effective it was, and therefore thought I'd use it. That's not the case at all. I've never even thought about using that technique until we started training for Ben, and it had nothing to do with the fact that Jimmy used it on me. It's very effective in itself, but yeah, I think sometimes the commentators are a little bit too opinionated. But it was just a technique that works for the style of fighter that Ben is, really.
Well, it's just natural, isn't it? Ben's a short guy anyway, so it's a lot easier to throw the knees and set him up for the knees against the cage, especially using the underhooks. He's already low down. All you have to do is hold his head down. It's a common practice anyway. Get the reversals with the underhooks. Obviously, you get the overhooks to fight it. So you reverse with the underhooks against the cage, and then you can throw elbows and knees. It's pretty much common anyway in a bit of dirty boxing. You just chose to use the knees over the dirty boxing and the elbows, and with Ben being short, it's sort of natural. So it's not like Jimmy used this spectacular move that nobody's ever seen before, which you incorporate into your style. It's sort of like you sort of train the clinch at any MMA gym, to be honest with you. It's sort of like a basic starter training method, really. So I wasn't too sure on that either, to be honest with you, Nick.
No, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. Jimmy's another level. He's a fantastic fighter, and that was an exceptional finish. I should have been paying a little bit more attention to cuts as opposed to sort of being a prat. But no, exactly like you said, it just worked well for Ben's stature, for Ben's technique and style. It was just simple, and I find myself taking that underhook quite nicely and positioning myself quite quickly for the knee strikes, and it just developed more and more in training, really, and then it became part of our strategy.
Well, giving props to Jimmy, you just have to watch the Valentino Petrescu fight to show how dominant and how strong he is in the clinch there. The Muay Thai clinch up against the cage. He's very strong, very dominant in those positions. So, a little props to Jimmy there. But I want to talk about the blood in the fight there, Nick. You mentioned about the blood. Are you sort of happy that the fight was stopped with all that blood? Because Ben did slip in his own blood and the fight continued. It sort of makes it very difficult. It's sort of like you're fighting in baby oil, and it can obviously help you get the chokes in a lot easier, but Ben's pretty good at his BJJ and choke defences, so that would have helped matters. But in terms of your footing, obviously you would have liked to have struck with Ben, stand on the feet. Now there's blood all over the cage. It's going to be very difficult to stand and get your footing and with the combinations and techniques and the foot movement that you would like to do in the fight. So in those terms, are you sort of happy the fight finished where it did early because of all the blood?
It's always good to finish a fight no matter what, really. I mean, we don't get paid for overtime, as I said before. I'm in there to do a job. I want to get the job done as quickly as possible, and I want to get home. It's that simple. In terms of the finish, do you know what? As much as I saw the cut and I thought this is over, in my mind, I was still ready to carry on. I mean, I trained for 3 hard rounds. I was ready for 3 fives, and I could have easily carried on. And I don't think it would have made a blind bit of difference that night. I don't think Ben was ever going to beat me. I worked too hard. I've come too far. I've focused too much on game plan and strategy. I honestly feel like we had that fight in the bag, and I sort of felt that way before we even stepped foot in the cage. I think if they'd let the fight carry on, it would have made things very difficult for Ben because he couldn't see what he was doing. In terms of the slippiness of the blood, yeah, I mean, but that would have worked in my favour because I weren't looking for any subs or any takedowns at all. It would have just been strike. So it probably would have been a very bad decision for any referee to let that fight continue. I think the blood would have just been a big problem for Ben. It wouldn't have been so much a problem for myself.
Now, forgive me for not recalling this, but I have watched many of your fights in the past, but I'm not too sure whether you touched gloves with opponents previously, but I noticed that you didn't touch gloves with Ben. Is that something that you usually don't do, or was it just for Ben?
Yeah, it's something I generally don't do full stop. I don't mean any disrespect by it, and I know sometimes it may come across that way, but for me it's business. I'm in there to do a job. I'm happy to shake your hand and touch gloves after the fight, win, lose or draw. I'm just not interested in doing that before, and I'm not trying to intimidate people because Ben Smith, you don't intimidate Ben. He's been around the block 100 times. I'm never going to be able to intimidate Ben Smith. We all know that. It's not about intimidation. It's just about me doing my thing. I was made to touch gloves before one fight before, and it's probably the worst performance I'd ever put in, and that was against Jimmy. There were reasons, unbeknown to everybody else that evening, I was pressured to touch gloves with Jimmy, or at least make an effort. Yeah. And I didn't like it. It didn't feel right at all. It's all too friendly for me. And I think when you're about to have a fight with someone, and as much as I don't dislike these people, in fact, a lot of them I like, I don't want to be their friend. I don't want to be that guy that taps gloves and says, yeah, well done. And it's just not for me. Maybe later on in the fight, if things are going well, there's a bit of tit and tat, and things are progressing well. I'll tap gloves in the middle of a fight. But at the very beginning, I just want to get in there and get the job done. And I feel like if I tap gloves, it almost takes a bit of my aggression away.
Yeah. Would you care to go into the reasons why you touched gloves with Jimmy and was made to? Sounds like you don't want to touch upon that too much.
No, I don't, to be fair. There was a conversation I had before with a few people that sort of mentioned that I need to make a bit of an effort because of potential crowd. So I did that, and I feel a little bit disgruntled that I was even asked to do that because the crowd control isn't an issue that I should have to worry about before a fight. But I tapped gloves with Jimmy, and I do respect Jimmy, but going back, I would have told that person absolutely categorically, no way am I tapping gloves with anybody. It's your job to deal with the crowd control, my job to fight. I'd have gone in there with a totally different attitude. The outcome may well have been exactly the same. I'm fighting Jimmy Manuel. Of course, you'd expect to have a tough fight with him, but it definitely took me off my game a little bit. I wasn't best pleased with the whole situation there. And I've sort of swore to myself, I'm never going to tap gloves with anyone before a fight again. I don't want to.
So the same, that's what I'm saying. So the same scenario happened again. Someone came to you, even if it's a close friend, like someone you trained with before, or someone you really, really respect. I know you respect a lot of your opponents, but someone you really respected, you trained with before, and you had to fight them, whatever, etc. You would refuse to touch anybody's gloves now. That's it now. No more touching gloves for Nick Chapman ever again, regardless of whatever scenario is presented to you.
I can promise you one thing right now, my friend. Never, ever in the history of my life will I tap gloves with anybody before a fight again.
Well, you talked about previously fighting for the UC MMA light heavyweight title. I believe, I'm not too sure on this, maybe you can confirm this for me, Nick. You had a crack against Linton Vassell, Jimmy Manuwa and Carl Kingslaw, that's correct, is it? Was this your 4th attempt at the title?
Yeah, 4th time lucky for me. Yeah, the thing is with me, I'm incapable of stopping. I don't know how to quit. I had that goal set in my mind 11 years ago, and everything I've done in my life from that time was focusing towards that title, and there was no way I was ever going to stop. A loss to me is just a learning curve. So the more times I lose, the better I become the next time I fight.
Well, Dave is the promoter of UCMA, he's the owner of that company. So that shows that Dave has a lot of confidence in your abilities there. Could you tell us the conversation between you and Dave O'Donnell in setting up this fight with Ben?
Do you know what? Dave's just been fantastic from day one. I think he's an incredible guy. He's a great promoter. He creates a show and an atmosphere unrivaled in this country. I'm telling you now, if you sit cage side at Ultimate Challenge, you're not going to experience that atmosphere anywhere else in this country. And he knows how much I've wanted this and how hard I've worked for this title over the years. So he's just been very kind and offered me opportunities, really, where, sometimes before there were people that didn't want to step up, for example, against Jimmy. Well, I was begging for it. I'm begging for that opportunity, Dave. Give it to me. So I took it. And same with Linton Vassell. I mean, he was a seriously good fighter at the time. And he was struggling to find people to step up and take that fight. Again, I'm there begging for it. So, yeah, it just sort of worked out well for me this time. I think everything aligned, and it was just my time, really.
Well, the main reason I asked that, because a lot of the fighters that UCM they get paid off ticket sales. We know Dave relies heavily on ticket sales, so he sort of pays his fighters a percentage off them. So he really needed to drum up some fan and crowd interest from you getting in the title fight. So that's why it really does show that extra faith in you. So that's why I really wanted to ask that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I mean, I do sell a lot of tickets as well, but I don't... I'll give them my commission back. I don't want to take money from people that are going to spend time and effort to come and shout for me to win a fight. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I have someone that manages all the ticket sales for me, and I take a small percentage of that commission. I pay her time and effort to do that for me, and I say to her, just give discount to everybody. So everybody gets discount. I get paid a fee to fight. It's not a great deal. In fact, it costs me money to fight because I spend more on training than I get paid to fight. But for me, it's all about passion. So yeah, I just wanted to add that bit in there, really.
Well, Jimmy Manuel and Linton Vassell, they both made successful defences of the UCMA light heavyweight title. I don't know what happened to Carl Kingslow. He went off to Cage Warriors. I'm not too sure if he made even one defence. But are you looking to stick on with UCMA and really defend that title and sort of following Linton's and Jimmy's footsteps?
Yeah, of course. I'm not just an also man. I'm striving for greatness, really. I want to push myself as far as I possibly can. I've already sort of mentioned today that I want Karlos Vemola, because the way I see it, out of anybody in the entire division right now, Karlos Vemola is going to be the biggest challenge for me. Also, it's the best stepping stone. I mean, he's ex-UFC, he's a serious dude. When I take Vemola out, I don't see any other option except for a step upwards potentially to the UFC by then. A good win over Vemola is exactly what I'm looking for now. I've put that out there. I've mentioned today that that's the fight I'd like, but I've also got a couple of other opportunities that have come my way, which I'm exploring at the moment. But certainly, I want to defend that title.
Well, it certainly makes sense. He is a big name. I spoke to Karlos. It was last year. Is when he left the UFC. He did signal that he wants the BAMA title. He wants the UCMA titles. He wants to take heavyweight, middleweight, light heavyweight. So he's coming after them all. So he has big plans to take all the titles. So he would certainly seem like he's next. I don't see much getting in the way of those contract negotiations for that fight, really.
No.
Also, what's sort of under the radar here is he's a teammate of Big Ben Smith. Obviously, Big Ben Smith did move to London Shoot not too long ago. He used to train at Team Titan beforehand, but it's still a little bit of a storyline there. And we know Dave O'Donnell's really good at telling a good storyline and promoting fights now. So that would certainly be a seller to the crowd there as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly it. And the thing is as well, the training camp we just put in for Ben Smith is almost the same as the type of training we do for Karlos Vemola. They're very similar fighters. Karlos has got a bit better wrestling, obviously, and he's a lot more aggressive. But I'm not in the least bit concerned about Karlos Vemola.
Do you think the clinch game would work against Karlos, or do you think you'll have a bit more of a struggle there? Would you have to mix it up a little bit? Do you think, or do you think you could catch him in those knees? He's quite short too. Just going off. Obviously, you haven't properly looked at tapes yet for him. You haven't fully prepared. This is just going off the top of your head right now.
I'll tell you something, and it's what I don't think a lot of people quite realise about myself. Is my strength and power. I don't think Ben expected me to be as strong and as powerful as I am, and I grapple with Ollie Thompson, who's former Britain's strongest man, an ex-UFC fighter. Dean Emerson is my coach, who trains with some of the best fighters in this country, and they all say they just cannot believe the strength in me. And I think Karlos Vemola might come a little bit unstuck. I think if they take me lightly and they don't really respect the strength in me, they're gonna struggle. And if I can get my game plan off quickly, I could finish him in round one. I'm confident I can. I don't think he's going to be as easy to fight as Ben Smith, but like I said before, I'm really not in the least bit concerned about Karlos Vemola. I've got a lot of respect for him, and I don't mean to sound arrogant because I'm not. I'm just very confident in what I do. I'm very confident in my coaches. I'm very confident in my training now, and I believe I could beat the guy quite comfortably.
Speaking about Dean Amasinger, we know he's well renowned for his weight cutting and getting his fighters to drop a lot of weight, healthily as well, getting in good shape. Just how much do you cut there, Nick? And does Dean Amasinger play a big part in you cutting weight healthy and cutting quite a lot of weight too, get you in good condition for your fight?
Oh, Dean's a genius. He's just been absolutely phenomenal. However, weight cut is something that I've studied to quite a high level. I've been at university and at college and at sports science, and that's an area that I particularly sort of focused on, was sports nutrition and particularly weight cutting. Dean's been fantastic with advice and guidance, but I only really cut. I get to about 98 kilos, and then I do a glycogen cut of about 2-3 kilos, and then just cut the rest in water overnight. So I don't do a massive weight cut for a light heavyweight. I mean, I'll probably cut no more than 5 kilos in the week leading up to the fight, and it's all managed really well. And then obviously it's all about the rehydrating and the replenishing of glycogen stores. That's obviously where it gets quite tricky but important. So I don't actually cut that much, to be fair. 5 kilos. I usually weigh in around 92.5 to 93 for the day before the fight, and I usually go in about 98 on the day of the fight. But Dean has just been incredible in every area, really, just for bringing in the right training partners, formulating a strategy, managing my schedules. He's been great.
Yeah, I would say keeping just such a body fat on you, and maybe about 3 weeks out from the fight, start dropping about maybe 6-7 pounds of fat off you. I would say that's the healthiest way, because obviously you keep your muscle there, you keep your protein intake as well. You always keep in great shape, but always you can eat some meats with a bit of fat on. Then obviously 3 weeks out from the fight, especially with your hard training anyway, you're going to naturally drop it. So that's probably the best way for me. I tend to think some people overbulk with the muscle or have too much fat on, and but it's all good and well you can drain out the fat from you, but it obviously drains you and tires you out. And I think a few people get it wrong and really cause themselves to fight poorly the very next day. So that's the correct way for me. That's what I sort of think. I'm no expert. You're the expert there, Nick. But is there anything today what we didn't talk about, Nick, that you like to say? Or anything you like to say to your fans? Any shout-outs there before we leave, Nick?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, mate. Yeah, first and foremost, I need to thank the guys who I call the Headhunter Army. These guys, they just follow me. They follow me for years. They're just amazing. They're so encouraging, so supportive, and motivational. They're amazing. I don't know what I've done to deserve such an awesome, loyal army of supporters, but I thank each and every one of them. Also need to thank SRD Paving, a friend of mine, Scott Davidson, who sponsored me. Daryl Wiseman from Elite Chris as well. Andy Dixon from Bad Boy UK, absolutely awesome. And then Steve Barton from Coco 5 as well. And then obviously all my team and my training partners and everybody else.
Okay, I managed to get hold of UC MMA owner Dave O'Donnell. Asked him for permission to use the footage from the fight between Big Ben Smith and Nick the Headhunter Chapman. So we've got that. You've obviously seen it in the interview, but also managed to get a few words from Dave O'Donnell. So here you go.
Just for the listeners, I wanted to ask you one quick question.
What's
the potential of Karlos Vemola versus Nick Chapman happening anytime soon for the light heavyweight title?
I'm actually speaking to both guys at the moment, so fingers crossed. It'll be a great fight. I think it'll push them both to the next level. Do you know what I mean? Because Karlos has been in the UFC. That's where Nick wants to go. So I'm sure at the end of the video, if you notice, Nick and Karlos both agreed to fight each other. But if he's on the heat at the moment, do you know what I mean?
He did sort of push Karlos off the mic. He was trying to get on his mic time.
I know.
Typical UCMA, it always happens at the end. But I would have liked to have seen Karlos get on the mic. Would you like Karlos to get on the mic there and have a few words? Sort of get the heat going, get the hype going a little bit, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, just Nick just said, I was right next to him when he said, you've had your time, give me mine now. You know what I mean? You've had your time on the mic, give me mine now.
What
you already said.
What did you make of
Hello?
his performance there? That was an incredible performance against Big Ben Smith. He obviously anticipated the takedown for Big Ben Smith, reversed him up against cage, got the underhooks, reversed him, and smashed those knees into him. Smiling as always, laughing away during the fight as he always does. What did you make of his performance there? Absolutely incredible.
Well, 100%. You know, Nick's improved so much. He's fell short a couple of times, but this time, you know, you saw when he came back, he was coming back 100% prepared. And he aims to, you know, it's make or break for Nick. Do you know what I mean? So he's got his dream at the moment, and he's just keep pushing on. You know, he's breaking all boundaries. So yeah, best of luck to him.
Well, Big Ben Smith coming off that impressive win over Tony Randall-Giles there. Many might have anticipated Big Ben Smith to stand up. He's had a few boxing bouts recently, that UK one bout. Wasn't to be, went to his bread and butter to take down and obviously paid for it. You're hoping to get Big Ben Smith back on future UCMA cards there, Dave?
Listen, Ben's been with me for a long, long time. But before the fight had happened, Ben was literally going to call it a day. Do you know what I mean? He's got a lot of things. He's got a lot of things going on at the moment. He's not getting any younger, as he said to me. He said, "Dave, I'll probably, you know, if I win the belt, I might hand it over to Karlos, just saying, look, you know, you're my true champion." Blah blah blah. If he'd lost, he was just going to call it a day anyway. So I think, you know, speaking to Ben, I think that's going to be. He may do boxing. He may stick to boxing and a bit of K1, but MMA just takes too much out of you. You know, at a certain age, you know, if you're not making it to the highest level, it just takes so much time and commitment. And you know, all people want money. You know, and if the money ain't there, if you're not getting on the big show, you just got to know when to call it a day. And I think Ben's going to call it a day.
Oh, that's strange to hear. Well, I spoke to Ben.
Yeah. I mean, it's gutting. You know,
Yeah.
As I say, Ben gave up a really, really good job to go full-time pro, and he's tried it. He's one of them. If I didn't commit to it 100%, I'd never know if it was going to happen for me or not. So he went. I know the kind of money he was on with his job. A massive job he gave up to actually live his dream, and he's done it for like a good 4 or 5 years. But as I say, every fighter's got to know when the end comes. You know, when they go right. You know, I've got to leave that behind and move on.
Well, Dave, thank you for the time there. Is there anything you'd like to say to listeners, upcoming UCMA events, where they can purchase tickets, catch the events, etc.?
Well, as always, it's ucmma.com. Just keep your eye out for the highlights of the show coming up earlier next week. And, tickets are on sale already for 44. We haven't got many fights lined up, but they should be announced in the next couple of weeks. And it's going to be another barnstormer, another sellout show. One of them.
Awesome. As always, guys, from the Crypt Fighting Talk Show, thank you for watching.